Most men collapse the moment they hear silence. They mistake it for emptiness. They think if they're not talking, not explaining, not proving themselves, then somehow they're losing. That's why they chase. That's why they beg. That's why they talk themselves into weakness. But the man who understands silence knows it is not a gap. It is a weapon. A weapon sharper than words, heavier than arguments, more destructive than shouting. Because silence makes people face themselves. And most can't handle what they see in that mirror. When you stay quiet, you create a space she cannot control. She can't twist it. She can't argue with it. She can't manipulate it. She's left in the darkness of her own mind, replaying everything she did, wondering what it meant, questioning why you didn't respond the way every other man would. Silence flips the script. She expected a reaction. She expected a defense. She expected emotion. Instead, she got nothing. And nothing is terrifying. Every word a man speaks in desperation lowers him. Every attempt to explain his worth only proves he doesn't believe in it. But the man who stays silent doesn't just hold the higher ground, he owns it. He's untouchable. Because silence cannot be argued against. You can fight words. You can spin stories. But you can't fight a man who refuses to play. That's why silence feels heavy. It lingers. It echoes louder than anything you could have said. It makes her think. It makes her doubt. It makes her chase answers you will never give. And in that chase the power shifts. She becomes the one seeking, you become the one choosing. Not through effort. Not through anger. Simply through absence. Silence is not weakness. Weakness is needing to be heard. Weakness is demanding recognition. Weakness is thinking her attention defines your worth. Real power is knowing your value with or without her. Real power is being so sure of yourself that you don't need to announce it. You don't need to remind her. You don't need to perform for her eyes. Silence is the ultimate reminder that you were never competing. In a world where everyone talks too much, where everyone shouts for validation, where everyone wants to be noticed, silence stands out like a storm. It unsettles. It disrupts. It makes her wonder, what does he know that I don't? That question eats at her. Because she's used to men crumbling at her feet. She's used to words, begging, explanations, apologies. She's not used to stillness. And stillness makes her restless. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your worth. You don't owe anyone a defense for your silence. A king doesn't step off his throne to argue with peasants. He sits higher because he knows his crown is enough. That's what silence is. A crown no one can take off you. A power no one can strip from you. It's not the absence of sound. It's the presence of strength. And when you master it, you'll realize, silence speaks louder than anything you could ever say. Power doesn't sit where most men think it does. They imagine it's in what they can say, how they can argue, how fast they can respond. They believe that if they can out-talk her, out-reason her, out-explain her, then they've won. But the truth is brutal. The man who tries to win with words has already lost. Because the one who talks the most is usually the one trying the hardest to convince. And the one who convinces is the one already beneath. Women expect reaction. They're conditioned for it. Every test, every poke, every push is designed to pull emotion out of you. They want to see if you'll break character, if you'll step off your frame, if you'll reveal that you're not as steady as you appear. When you react, she reads you. She calculates you. She measures exactly how much power she has over you. That's why words are dangerous. They give away the map to your emotions. But when she tests and you stay still, when she throws sparks and you don't catch fire, when she tries to pull you into chaos and you don't move, the entire dynamic flips. Suddenly she's no longer the one pulling the strings. She's faced with something she can't decode. A silence she can't interpret. A presence she can't control. That's when the power shift begins, quietly, invisibly, but undeniably. She expected you to chase. She expected you to explain. She expected you to get pulled into her storm. Instead you stood like stone. And stone unnerves her. Because stone doesn't bend. Stone doesn't react. Stone doesn't seek approval. It just exists in its own weight. That weight becomes gravity, and gravity always pulls. The less you chase, the more she feels pulled into you. Not because you tried, but because you didn't. That's the paradox most men never understand. The harder you try to hold a woman, the faster she slips through your fingers. The less you need to hold her, the closer she drifts. Silence is not just stillness, it's gravity. It's what makes her lean in even when she doesn't want to. It's what makes her check your absence like it's a presence. You don't win her respect by filling space. You win it by owning space. And the man who owns it doesn't rush to prove himself. He doesn't jump to answer every question. He doesn't defend every accusation. He lets silence do the talking. Because silence says, I'm not playing your game. I don't need to. I know who I am and nothing you do can move me. That message cuts deeper than any speech. Power lives in restraint. Power lives in patience. Power lives in the choice not to react. Because when you don't react, you take away her script. You take away her ability to predict you. You take away her control. And the moment she realizes she can't control you, that's the moment she feels something she didn't expect. Respect mixed with fear. And that's where true power begins. Not in noise. Not in arguments. Not in chasing. But in silence so strong it bends the entire interaction toward you without a single word. Silence only works when it's pure. That's the part most men never understand. They think being quiet means disappearing for a few days, then popping back up to check if she noticed. They think silence means not texting but still watching her stories, still liking her pictures, still leaving little digital fingerprints everywhere. That's not silence. That's noise disguised as stillness. And she can hear it. She can feel it. She knows you're still orbiting her. That's not power. That's weakness in camouflage. Real silence is clean. It's not a strategy. It's not a tactic. It's not a countdown until you break. It's a decision. A line you draw where you say, I will no longer perform for someone else's attention. When you cut off the energy, you cut it off completely. No breadcrumbs. No hints. No desperate shadows. Just stillness. And that stillness carries weight because it isn't poisoned by games. If your silence is filled with resentment, she'll smell it. If it's meant to punish her, she'll sense it. If you're only doing it to make her chase, she'll know it. Women are wired to detect emotional intent. They can feel when a man is playing pretend. And the moment they sense your silence is fake, it loses all power. Because silence is only powerful when it comes from truth. That truth is detachment. The absence of need. The refusal to be defined by her reaction. When you go silent with a hidden agenda, you're still tethered. You're still chained to her response. You're still letting her dictate your energy. But when you go silent because you've decided you won't explain yourself, won't lower yourself, won't trade your peace for drama, then you've stepped into real power. That's the difference between a boy trying to manipulate and a man standing in control. You can't half-do silence. Half silence is noise. Half silence is insecurity dressed as strength. But pure silence? That's untouchable. It doesn't leak. It doesn't crack. It doesn't need reinforcement. It stands because it doesn't depend on outcome. Whether she notices or not, whether she comes back or not, whether she regrets it or not, pure silence remains. That's what makes it so devastating. Most men weaponize silence with the wrong heart. They want revenge. They want her to suffer. But that's not silence, that's bitterness. And bitterness eats you alive. True silence has no hate in it. It has no hunger in it. It's neutral. It's peace. And that's what makes it terrifying. Because when you're no longer fighting, no longer proving, no longer even trying to be heard, she feels the void. She feels the absence of her influence. She feels the collapse of her control. And in that moment, the truth hits her. She's not dealing with a boy who plays games. She's facing a man who doesn't need her validation to stand tall. That realization cuts deeper than anger ever could. Because silence, when it's real, is the loudest message of all. A message that says, I'm already free. The first time you go silent, she won't feel it. Not at all. She'll shrug. She'll laugh to herself. She'll say, he's just mad. He'll be back. That's denial, and it's her comfort zone. She's so used to men caving, so used to men folding, that your silence doesn't even register as real. In her mind, you're temporary. You're just another man reacting, and reactions never last. So she convinces herself your silence is a phase. At this stage, silence feels invisible. It feels like nothing is happening. That's why most men break. They expect fireworks. They expect a sudden shift. They expect her to feel the weight instantly. When nothing happens, they panic. They reach out. They explain. They destroy the very power they were building. Because silence isn't a quick strike. It's not an explosion. It's erosion. It works slow, steady, relentless. And only men with patience will see its full effect. Denial is her shield. She tells herself you'll cave. She tells her friends you're stubborn but you'll come around. She tells herself the silence means less than it does. But even in that denial, a seed has been planted. She may not admit it, but a thought slips in. What if he doesn't come back? That thought is small at first, easy to dismiss, but it grows. Because every day you don't break the silence, that seed roots deeper. She's seen men pull away before. She's seen men go quiet for a night, maybe two. But she's also seen them all return, crawling, apologizing, eager to repair what she broke. She's counting on you to do the same. When you don't, her denial starts to strain. She'll still play it cool, still act unfazed, still tell herself the story that you're bluffing. But a tiny fracture has formed. And fractures always spread. This is where your discipline matters most. Because silence at the beginning feels like emptiness. Feels like standing still while nothing changes. That's when doubt creeps in, not in her but in you. You'll ask yourself if it's working, if she's thinking about you, if it even matters. That's the trap. Silence is not about watching her. It's about mastering yourself. The longer you hold the line, the louder the silence grows. Her denial won't last forever. It can't. Denial only works when reality never changes. But your silence doesn't break, and every day it doesn't break, reality shifts further away from what she believed. She thought she had control. She thought you'd always be available. She thought your emotions would betray you. But your silence is proving her wrong. And every time her story cracks, she feels it. Not in front of you but in private. Alone, late at night, when her mind runs back to you and wonders why you haven't returned. That's the beginning of the power shift. Silence doesn't destroy her in one strike. It starts by planting doubt inside denial. And once that doubt takes root, there's no going back. Curiosity is the second stage, and it always comes after denial. At first, she laughed it off, convinced herself you'd come back, told everyone you were just sulking. But silence that holds, silence that doesn't fold, begins to itch at the back of her mind. She starts to wonder. She starts to check. She starts to question. That's when curiosity takes over, and it's relentless. She'll glance at her phone more often, pretending it's not for you. She'll scroll her notifications slower, secretly hoping your name shows up. She'll check your page not to like anything but to see if you've left a trace. She doesn't want to admit it, but your silence has flipped the script. Instead of her being the center of your attention, you've become the center of hers. And you didn't even move. This stage is dangerous for her pride because she doesn't want to chase, but her mind keeps circling back to you. She'll tell herself she doesn't care, but then she'll start comparing your silence to the way other men behave. Other men flood her with attention. Other men blow up her phone. Other men chase even after rejection. But you're absent. You're still. You're unbothered. That difference gnaws at her. It creates a contrast she can't ignore. The longer the silence stretches, the louder her curiosity grows. She'll start making excuses to herself. Maybe he's busy. Maybe he's moved on. Maybe he found someone else. And that last thought burns. Because even if she doesn't want you, the idea of you being wanted by someone else is a weight she can't shake off. She thought she controlled the dynamic, but your silence is proving otherwise. She'll test the waters. A random text. A casual comment. A meaningless reaction to your story if you post one. But make no mistake, that's not casual. That's her curiosity bleeding through. That's her trying to see if you'll break the silence first. She wants proof you're still orbiting her. And when you give her nothing, when you stay still, that curiosity grows into obsession. Curiosity is the hook. It's not yet regret, it's not yet fear, but it's the pull that drags her closer to both. It's the stage where silence stops feeling like absence and starts feeling like presence. She can't escape it. She can't control it. She can't figure it out. And human beings hate what they can't figure out. Women especially hate when they can't read a man. That unreadability becomes magnetic. You don't chase during this stage. You don't acknowledge her little tests. You don't throw her breadcrumbs. Because the moment you feed her curiosity, you kill it. The strength of silence lies in never satisfying her hunger. Let her wonder. Let her spiral. Let her dig deeper into her own mind, trying to find answers that don't exist. That's the beauty of silence. It doesn't give her what she wants. It gives her what she fears, questions with no answers. And the more she thinks, the stronger your presence becomes. Until she realizes she's no longer in control of her own thoughts. Curiosity doesn't stay innocent for long. At first it's just her checking. Just her wondering. Just her scrolling to see if you're still around. But when silence doesn't break, curiosity mutates into something heavier. That's when the war begins, not between you and her but inside her own head. One part of her still clings to pride. That part says you were just another man. That part says you'll fold like the rest. That part tells her you're bluffing, pretending, holding out only to get attention. Pride will whisper, "He's nothing special. He'll come crawling back." But another voice starts to rise. A voice she doesn't like. A voice that says, "What if he's not? What if he really doesn't care? What if he's different?" That's the voice your silence awakens, and it splits her in two. Now she's fighting herself. Pride against doubt. Confidence against fear. She wants to believe she's still in control, but every day your silence doesn't break, that belief weakens. Every day you hold the line, her certainty cracks. She tries to distract herself. She talks to other men. She posts for attention. She convinces herself she doesn't need you. But every time those things fail to fill the void, the war inside her grows louder. That's the genius of silence. You're not even there, yet you're everywhere. You're not speaking, but you're in her head. You're not chasing, but she's still running circles around the thought of you. And the more she fights it, the stronger it becomes. Because what you don't feed only grows in mystery. And mystery always beats predictability. This war eats at her because it flips her own story against her. She told herself she could replace you. She told herself you were disposable. But if that were true, why is she still thinking about you? Why does your absence feel heavier than other men's presence? Why does the silence press on her chest like a weight she can't explain? That contradiction tears at her. It forces her to face something she never wanted to admit. Maybe she underestimated you. Men don't understand how powerful this moment is. They think silence only works if she comes back begging. But the real power isn't in her actions. It's in her conflict. It's in the chaos you've created inside her without lifting a finger. That war will replay every time she sees your name. Every time she remembers your stillness. Every time she realizes you never broke like the others. And here's the cruel beauty of it. Silence doesn't argue. It doesn't defend. It doesn't shout. Just waits. It lets her burn herself out, fighting ghosts of her own making. You're not her opponent anymore. Her own mind is. And that's a battle she can't win. Because no matter how loud her pride screams, silence whispers louder. That's when respect begins to creep in. Not because you demanded it. Not because you forced it. But because she can't deny the truth. Your silence is stronger than her noise. Regret doesn't hit all at once. It creeps in slow, like a shadow she pretends not to see. At first, it's just a flicker. A memory of when you were around. A thought of something she said that maybe she shouldn't have. A flash of your face in a quiet moment when she thought she was fine. But silence makes those flickers grow. The longer you hold the line, the louder those regrets echo. And soon she can't escape them. She'll replay the time she dismissed you. The words she threw at you thinking you'd always come back. The little test she ran to see if you'd break. Back then she thought she was clever. Back then she thought you'd fold like the others. But now, in silence, those same moments feel heavy. They sting. They don't feel like control anymore, they feel like mistakes. She won't admit it out loud. Her pride won't let her. She'll keep the mask on, acting like she's unbothered, like nothing touches her. But in the quiet, when no one's watching, regret eats at her. Because she knows what she lost wasn't just attention. It was presence. It was a man who didn't beg. A man who didn't explain. A man who stood tall without needing her approval. That kind of man doesn't come around often, and silence forces her to face the truth. She pushed it away. This regret is different from missing someone. Missing is soft. Regret is sharp. Missing makes you wish for comfort. Regret makes you hate yourself for what you did. And that's what silence awakens in her. Not just longing, but self-reproach. She'll ask herself why she tested you. Why she didn't respect you when you were there. Why she believed you'd always stay no matter how she acted. Those questions cut deeper than any words you could have thrown at her. And here's the beauty, you didn't have to remind her. You didn't have to lecture her. You didn't have to make a scene. Your silence did the work. Your stillness held the mirror, and she's the one staring into it. That reflection is brutal. Because now she sees herself as the reason for the silence. She sees her own actions as the trigger. And the hardest thing for a woman to admit is that she miscalculated a man. Regret grows heavy with time. It lingers in quiet moments, in lonely nights, in the silence after the noise of the day fades. It's in those moments she feels it most. She'll remember the man who didn't fold, who didn't chase, who didn't let her control the frame. And she'll realize she may never experience that again. That realization burns more than your absence ever could. Silence creates regret not because it punishes, but because it reveals. It strips away the distractions and forces her to face the truth she wanted to avoid. She lost a man who refused to lose himself. And that kind of regret doesn't fade. It stays with her. It follows her. And it whispers louder every time she thinks of you. There comes a point where her regret no longer matters. Because the silence wasn't for her. It was never about teaching her a lesson or making her crawl back. It was about you. About who you became when you stopped explaining, stopped chasing, stopped bleeding energy into someone who couldn't value it. Silence isn't just the absence of words, it's the rebirth of a man. At first it feels like control. Like you're holding back, resisting the urge to reach out. But with time, silence becomes something greater. It turns into peace. You stop waiting for her response. You stop checking if she notices. You stop caring about her side of the story. And in that space you begin to hear something you've ignored for too long, yourself. That's the power most men miss. They think silence is only a tactic to win her attention. But it's not. It's a doorway. It's the moment you step out of her frame and back into your own. It's the shift from seeking validation to building sovereignty. And once you feel it, once you taste the freedom of not being bound to her reactions, you realize something: she's no longer the point. You are. Her regret? That's her battle. Her confusion? That's her burden. But your silence is your crown. It's proof that you chose yourself over the noise. That you didn't bend for approval. That you didn't trade self-respect for comfort. That's what makes silence more than a weapon. It makes it a transformation. And here's the truth. When you stop speaking, you start moving differently. You walk heavier. You look calmer. You act with purpose, not desperation. People notice it. She notices it. The world notices it. Because silence reshapes a man. It sharpens him. It strips away weakness. It hardens his presence until it becomes undeniable. That's why silence is feared, not just because it makes her regret, but because it builds you into someone unshakable. This rebirth isn't loud. It doesn't need an announcement. It's in the choices you make, the boundaries you set, the way you no longer flinch when someone tests you. It's in the stillness of a man who has nothing to prove, nothing to chase, nothing to beg for. That's what silence gives you. The man you were meant to be before you lost yourself in noise. And when she sees it, when she feels it, when she realizes the silence wasn't weakness but evolution, that's when her regret becomes permanent. Because now it's not just about losing you. It's about watching the man she underestimated rise higher without her. That sight is the final sting. But for you, it's not about her anymore. It's about the new ground you stand on. The peace you carry. The strength you've claimed. Silence wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. And now nothing speaks louder than the man you've become.